We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Karl. Karl picked up one of the new Apple TV 4K units, and he loved that it included a tester cable option to let you know if you need to upgrade your HDMI cable.
Yeah.
Anyways, his old Amazon Basics HDMI cable failed. So while he was at the Apple store, he noticed a new ultra-high-speed HDMI cable from Belkin. They claim it has bandwidth of up to 48 gigabits per second, or gigaflops or something. Anyways, so does that make it an HDMI 2.1 cable? Doesn't that make it can handle 8K or something? Was it 48?
That would be
8K?
the idea.
I doubt that. Up to usually means, like, in a perfect world, if you held it just right and gravity was affecting the electron so it went down faster. Yeah. Okay. Can you see your Apple TV 4K through the cable you currently have? Because if you can see it to tell you that it has failed, I feel like it didn't fail. I feel like it didn't.
And there's the being able to manually set what the Apple TV 4K is outputting, although everything will then come out of that one format that you select. God, that's dumb. Yeah, so there's a few things to unpack here. So first of all, and really importantly, there is no such thing as an HDMI 2.1 cable.
I mean, they just came up with that stuff.
Well, no, it's just that is not a name of a thing, right? HDMI LLC has been fighting this incredibly losing battle this entire time. But they really don't want the spec numbers included anywhere because the spec number is kind of meaningless.
Yeah.
They want manufacturers and everybody to talk about what features are supported because you can be an HDMI 2.1 specification adopter as a manufacturer. You can put the latest HDMI chips into your device and then still not support anything that HDMI 2.1 has added to the specification. You don't have to support any of the new features. You have the chips, you have the licensing, but you didn't put in any of the new features. That's entirely possible. So they want to focus on what features are supported, not spec numbers, because the spec number doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mandate anything. So cables are never supposed to be labeled as 2.0, 2.1, nothing like the spec number should never appear. If it does, it means they're going against the official licensing of HDMI LLC. So there's no such thing as an HDMI 2.1 cable. We have standard speed HDMI cables, high speed HDMI cables, and premium high speed HDMI cables. Those are the official names that are
no ultra
sanctioned.
Premium X cables.
Ultra high speed doesn't exist. Belkin made that up. HDMI doesn't recognize anything called ultra high speed. There's premium high speed, but not ultra high speed. They do recognize now something that is going to be labeled as a 48G cable. That's the official naming for a cable that supports 48 gigabits per second. That is a real thing. It's an official thing, but the name of that cable is 48G.
So when they say up to 48, they mean, well, we're pretty sure it could do it. If like you
Maybe.
if
and
you
I mean,
put it in the right conditions and that sort of thing.
Monster Cable has been doing their own testing and been showing the data rates that they've managed to pass through all their various levels of cables, and they've gone beyond 48 gigabits per second in their own testing. And that's probably entirely true.
They have the gear to test it.
They have the gear to test it.
I mean, they may lie about it, but I don't see why they would, because they've got the gear. We know.
At least they tend to not lie about that sort of stuff. I mean, they charge you a crazy, ridiculous overpricing for it, and it's totally not necessary for anything you're watching today. But when they say we tested this HDMI cable and it passed 56 gigabits per second, it probably did.
Yeah.
I don't really doubt that claim. There's no reason to have it, but it didn't. So this whole thing being labeled ultra high speed, being called an HDMI 2.1 cable, neither of those things is a real thing. That doesn't exist. If it were a real thing, it'd be called a 48G cable. Now, you don't need that. That's for technically, okay, so technically if you were doing 4K resolution at 120 frames per second, but with no chroma subsampling, so with a 444 signal.
Right. All the bandwidth, all of the data.
Then you might need to go above 18 gigabits per second, which is what premium high speed means. Premium high speed means 18 gigabits per second. But you'd have to go beyond 4K resolution at 60 frames per second, even with no chroma subsampling, full 444 signal. You have to go beyond that to require more than 18 gigabits per second. The Apple TV 4K doesn't output anything above 4K, 60 hertz, no chroma subsampling with HDR, lossless audio, all that stuff. But it doesn't do that. It will not require, the Apple TV 4K will not require anything beyond a premium high-speed 18 gigabits per second cable. That's what you need if you want the maximum that the Apple TV 4K can do. I don't know what this Belkin thing is. You know, it's labeled itself with something that isn't officially sanctioned by HDMI LLC. That's what they've done there.
All right. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.